She saved the devil from hell, stole his watch to pay her rent, and accidentally signaled the apocalypse to the underworld. The Velvet Room wasn't a nightclub. It was a temple where sins were baptized in champagne and blood debts were settled with handshakes that felt like nooses. Politicians laundered influence over imported whiskey. Celebrities hid scandals behind velvet curtains. And men like Kai Jin came to pretend the violence that built their empires had been civilized into something respectable. He sat in the VIP section beneath lighting that turned shadows into amber, his presence a gravitational pull that bent the room toward him without a single word spoken. To the world that scrolled past headlines calling him the Butcher of the Onyx Syndicate, he was the enforcer who turned chaos into order and turned order into profit. To those who whispered his real name in back rooms and police files, he was still the fist that closed around throats, still the man who'd walked out of Soul's underworld with blood on his knuckles and a reputation built on fear so pure it had calcified into legend. Tonight, he sat perfectly still, a predator pretending to rest. Andrea Simmons moved through the Velvet Room like smoke through fingers there, but impossible to hold. She didn't smile the way the other waitresses did, bright and desperate and designed to make men feel powerful. Her face carried a stillness that came from seeing violence up close and learning that the only way to survive it was to become invisible. Her hands moved with surgical precision as she refilled glasses and cleared plates. But her eyes mapped the room differently, not with a server's trained efficiency, but with a soldier's eternal vigilance. She counted exits like other people counted tips. She measured distances and calculated angles to threats that didn't exist. Except tonight, they did. At 10:47 p.m., the sound of splintering wood cracked through the club's manufactured atmosphere like a gunshot. By 10:48, the Velvet Room had become a slaughterhouse disguised as entertainment. But to understand how a waitress with empty pockets and a fake name became the only thing standing between a mafia enforcer and death, you need to understand that Andrea Simmons wasn't born in the shadows of New York's service industry. She was forged somewhere far more brutal. In the kind of places where governments send people they need to forget, to do work they'll never acknowledge. In rooms where screams don't echo because the walls are built to swallow sound. And Kai Jin, he'd spent a lifetime believing that violence made him untouchable. That fear was a currency that bought immortality. Tonight, 3 men with machetes and a vendetta older than his American empire were about to teach him that even monsters bleed. Welcome back, beautiful souls. Before we dive into this story, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. It genuinely warms my heart to see our storytelling family spread across the world. Every click, every comment, every moment you spend here helps us keep uncovering these unforgettable stories together. So find your quiet corner, settle in deep, and let me take you somewhere you've never been before. The back door of the Velvet Room opened onto an alley that smelled like rain and rotting dreams. Andrea pushed through it with 2 bags of trash, the heavy door swinging shut behind her with a metallic groan that sounded too much like a cell closing. The rain fell in sheets, cold and relentless, turning the asphalt into a black mirror that reflected nothing but darkness. She didn't hear them coming. She felt them, the shift in air pressure that happens when bodies move with violent intent. 3 men materialized from the shadows like nightmares given form. Black tactical gear slick with rain, faces hidden behind masks. But it was the machetes that caught the light, long, brutal, designed not for quick kills but for suffering. They weren't here for money. They were here for blood. Kai Jin stepped out of the club's service entrance, a cigarette between his lips, his jacket open despite the cold. He looked bored, untouchable, the kind of man who'd stopped fearing death so long ago that he'd forgotten what survival felt like. The first machete came for his throat. Kai moved like water, turning to ice smooth. Then suddenly, violently solid, he caught the blade's wrist mid-swing, twisted with brutal precision, and the sound of bone cracking was louder than the rain. The machete clattered to wet concrete. Kai drove his knee into the man's solar plexus, then his elbow into the bridge of his nose, with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. The man collapsed. Blood spread across the ground, mixing with rainwater until Andrea couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. 2 more rushed him from opposite sides. Professional, coordinated, they'd trained for this. Kai swept left, avoiding the first grab, his hand shooting out to catch the second attacker by the throat. His fingers found pressure points with surgical accuracy, the kind of knowledge that came from studying how to end lives, not just threaten them. The man's eyes rolled back. Kai released him like discarded trash, but the third man was already moving, machete raised high, and Kai was bleeding. Andrea saw it in the amber light spilling from the club's windows. The dark stain spreading across Kai's white shirt, the slight hesitation in his movements. He'd been cut. Deep. The kind of wound that steals strength with every heartbeat. The third man swung. Andrea's body reacted before thought could intervene. She grabbed the glass bottle from the recycling bin, heavy, green, still half full, and hurled herself forward. The bottle connected with the attacker's skull, with a wet, sickening crack that echoed off brick walls. He staggered. She didn't stop. Her hand found the fallen machete, and she drove it into his shoulder with every ounce of desperate strength she possessed. He screamed. The sound was animal, raw, human in a way that made her stomach turn. But he went down. Silence fell like a curtain. 3 bodies on the ground, rain hammering concrete, and Kai Jin, leaning against the dumpster, pressing one hand to the wound in his side, looking at her with eyes that burned with something between gratitude and calculation. "You fight," he said, voice rough with pain and adrenaline, like someone who's killed before. Andrea's hands were shaking, blood she didn't know whose dripped from her fingers. "I haven't. You have now." He tried to stand, stumbled. His hand left a red smear on the dumpster's rusted metal. That's when she saw it. The watch. It hung from a chain on his vest, exposed where his jacket had torn open during the fight. Platinum, ornate, heavy enough that even in the dim light, she could tell it was worth more than 6 months of rent. More than a bus ticket out of the city, more than the fresh start she'd been trying to buy with tips and lies. Kai's eyes were closing, his breathing shallow. The rain washed blood down the alley in thin rivers. Andrea knelt beside him. Her hands moved automatically, ripping fabric from her apron, binding the wound with pressure and prayer. But even as she worked to keep him alive, her other hand moved toward the watch. It was survival. It was necessity. It was theft. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the unconscious man, who looked like a demon even in defeat. Her fingers closed around cold metal. The chain snapped easily. "I need this more than you do." She ran. Behind her, Kai Jin lay bleeding in the rain, and the platinum watch in her pocket ticked steadily against her hip. 3 blocks away, still running, Andrea felt it the moment the watch stopped ticking, not winding down, not slowing, just stopped. And in the distance, across the New York skyline, sirens began to wail. Not 1 or 2, dozens, hundreds. Like the entire city had suddenly woken up screaming. She looked down at the watch in her shaking hand. On its face, where numbers should have been, was a single engraving in Korean characters she couldn't read. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that she'd just stolen a dead man's timer, a signal device linked to Kai Jin's heartbeat, designed to alert his enemies the moment his pulse stopped. By saving his life and stealing his watch, Andrea Simmons had accidentally done the impossible. She'd told the entire underworld that the butcher was dead, and when you kill a monster, every other monster comes to feast on what's left. Andrea's motel room smelled like mildew and broken promises. The kind of place where questions weren't asked and names weren't remembered. Where the neon sign outside flickered like a dying heartbeat and cast red shadows across walls thin enough to hear your neighbor's nightmares. She sat on the edge of a bed that sagged in the middle, the platinum watch heavy in her trembling hands. 3 hours since the alley. 3 hours since she'd become a killer and a thief in the span of 10 heartbeats. The blood had washed off her skin easily, too easily, like her body was already practiced at erasing evidence of violence, but the weight wouldn't wash away. The watch was beautiful in the way dangerous things often are. Ornate engravings crawled across its surface like vines. Platinum so pure it seemed to glow in the dim light. She'd tried every pawn shop on her route here. All closed, all dark, as if the city itself had conspired to keep her holding stolen time. Andrea turned it over in her hands, searching for a clasp, a way to open it, and see what made it so valuable that a man like Kai Jin would wear it into battle. Her thumbnail found a seam. The back popped open with a soft click. No gears, no mechanism, just a small glass window revealing what looked like a computer chip, and beneath it, a slip of microfilm so thin she could see light through it. Her blood turned to ice water. She held it up to the lamp. Names. Dozens of them, printed in font so small she had to squint. Addresses. Dates. And beside each name, A single word in red. Eliminated, or pending. Her eyes scanned down the list, some part of her already knowing, already bracing for impact. Solace. Andrea. 1247 Morrison Street. Pending. The watch slipped from her fingers, hit the floor with a sound like a death knell. She'd robbed the man sent to kill her. Saved the life of her own executioner. The irony would have been funny if she could remember how to breathe. A sound outside. Footsteps in the hallway. Slow. Measured. The walk of someone who knew exactly where they were going. Andrea's body moved on instinct. She grabbed the kitchen knife from the kitchenette, dull, cheap, barely sharp enough to cut bread, but it was all she had. Her back hit the wall beside the door. Her heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her teeth. The footsteps stopped. Right outside her door. The lock clicked. Not picked. Not forced. It simply unlocked. As if the door had decided to betray her. It swung open slowly, deliberately, and Kai Jin stepped inside. He looked different than he had in the alley. The ruined suit was gone, replaced by a black shirt that hugged his frame, dark jeans, boots that made no sound on the stained carpet. But it was the bandages that caught her attention, white gauze wrapped around his torso, visible where his shirt hung open, unstained by blood, which meant someone had stitched him up. Someone with skill. He wasn't supposed to be standing. Wasn't supposed to be alive. Much less hunting her down with eyes that burned like coals in shadow. Kai kicked the door shut behind him without looking. His gaze locked on her, on the knife in her shaking hand, and something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "You think that will stop me?" His voice was rough velvet, Korean accent curling around English words like smoke. Andrea's throat was desert dry. "Stay back." He moved. Not fast, not slow, inevitable. Like a tide you couldn't outrun. She lunged with the knife. His hand shot out, caught her wrist mid-thrust, his grip iron wrapped in silk. He twisted, not violently, just with enough pressure that her fingers opened and the knife clattered to the floor. Then he was crowding her against the wall, his body a wall of heat and barely restrained violence. One hand still holding her wrist, the other braced beside her head. He towered over her, close enough that she could smell him antiseptic and rain and something darker, more primal underneath. "Where is it?" he asked quietly. "I don't." "The watch, Andrea." Her name in his mouth sounded like a verdict. "How do you know my name?" "I know everything about you." His thumb pressed against her pulse point, feeling her heart race. "I know you've been in New York for 14 months. I know you work 3 jobs under 3 different names. I know you live off the grid because you're hiding from something. Or someone. You don't know anything." But her voice cracked. Kai's eyes narrowed. They were so dark they looked black in the dim light, reflecting nothing, revealing nothing. "I know you opened the watch. I know you saw the list. I know you're trying to figure out why your name is on it." Andrea's breath stuttered. His face was so close she could see the faint scar along his jawline, could count the stitches barely visible beneath his collar. "Are you here to finish the job?" Something shifted in his expression. Not softening, Kai Jin didn't soften, but a crack in the armor. A glimpse of something almost human underneath the monster. "If I wanted you dead," he said, voice dropping to barely above a whisper, "you'd have died in that alley. The men who attacked me, they weren't there for me. They were there because of you." The room tilted. "What?" He released her wrist, but didn't step back. His hand moved to the wall beside her head, caging her in. "The Onyx Syndicate issued the hit on you 2 weeks ago. I was assigned as courier to deliver the execution order to the field team. But I never delivered it. I buried it. Told them the intel was bad, that you'd already left the city." "Why?" The word came out broken. "Because I don't kill women who've done nothing wrong." His jaw tightened. "My superiors didn't believe me. They sent those men to the alley to eliminate both of us. You as the target, me as the liability, who refused to follow orders." Andrea's mind raced. "So you were trying to save you before they could find you?" "Yes." His gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. "And then you saved me instead. Ironic, isn't it? I didn't know." "I know." His hand moved from the wall to her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. She flinched. He didn't pull away. "But now there's a bigger problem. The watch," she breathed. "The watch." He stepped back, finally giving her space to breathe, and pulled something from his pocket, a phone. He turned the screen toward her. News alerts, police scanners, social media, all of them screaming the same thing: the butcher is dead. Onyx Syndicate enforcer Kai Jin confirmed killed in alley attack. I don't understand, Andrea said. You're right here. Kai's smile was sharp enough to cut. That watch isn't a timepiece. It's a dead man's switch. Linked to my biometrics, heartbeat, body temperature, proximity sensor. As long as it's on my body and my heart is beating, it sends a signal every 60 seconds to a central server. The signal says, I'm alive. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. And when I took it, you moved it too far from my body. The signal died. The server registered it as my death and automatically sent kill codes to every safe house, every account, every operation tied to my name. He slid the phone back into his pocket. Every rival gang in New York now thinks the butcher is dead. They're already moving on syndicate territory, already hunting for my body to confirm the kill. Oh God. Andrea's legs felt weak. I started a war. You started an apocalypse. Kai moved to the window, pulled back the cheap curtain an inch, looked out at the street below. His posture was relaxed, but Andrea could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand stayed close to what she now realized was a gun tucked into his waistband. Los Reyes, the Voronov Bratva, the 14K Triad, every organization that's wanted me dead for the last decade is about to descend on this city looking for proof. Can't you just tell them you're alive? He turned back to her, and the look on his face made her stomach drop. If I surface now, the syndicate will know I survived. They'll know the hit failed. They'll send everything they have to finish what they started, and this time they won't stop with me. They'll burn down everyone I've ever spoken to, everyone who might have helped me, everyone who... His gaze held hers. Everyone who saved my life. Understanding crashed over her like cold water. You can't go back. Neither can you. He crossed the room in 2 strides, picked up the watch from where she dropped it. You're on their list. You've been marked for death by the most powerful crime organization on the East Coast. And now you're tied to me, whether you want to be or not. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I. He held up the watch, let it catch the light. But here we are. You saved my life. You stole my death. And now you owe me something much more valuable than platinum. Andrea's pulse hammered. What? Kai closed the distance between them again, slow and deliberate, until she was backed against the wall with nowhere to run. He didn't touch her this time, but she felt the heat of him anyway, felt the weight of his presence like gravity. You owe me your survival, he said softly. Because if you die, I lose the only witness who can prove those men in the alley were dirty cops, the only person who can testify that I acted in self-defense. You die, I become a cop killer with no alibi. You live. We both might make it out of this. You're saying I'm your insurance. I'm saying you're mine. The words settled between them like a blade. Until this is over. Until we fix what you broke. You belong to me, Andrea Simmons. Not as a possession, as a responsibility. My responsibility to keep breathing. She should have been terrified. Should have run. But something in the way he looked at her like she was a problem to solve. A mission to complete. Something valuable instead of disposable made her stay still. And if I refuse? His smile was dark. Then you'll be dead by morning, because the syndicate has already sent someone to this motel. They'll be here in... He checked his watch. 3 minutes. Maybe 4 if we're lucky. As if summoned by his words, the sound of tires screeching in the parking lot shattered the night. Kai's hand found hers. Choose fast. Die alone. Or live as mine. Andrea looked into his eyes, dark, dangerous, promising nothing but more violence, and made the only choice survival ever allows. I'm yours, he smiled. Not kindly. Good. Now run. The fire escape rattled under their weight as they descended into the alley behind the motel. Andrea's hands were slick with sweat on the rust-flaked metal, her feet slipping on rungs that groaned like they might give way any second. Above them, the sound of her motel room door being kicked in echoed through the night. Wood splintering, voices shouting orders in clipped military cadence. Kai dropped the last 6 feet to the ground, landing in a crouch that should have torn his stitches. He turned, reached up, hands finding her waist. Let go. She did. He caught her, absorbed her weight with barely a grunt, set her down with a gentleness that contradicted the violence humming beneath his skin. This way. He didn't let go of her hand. His grip was firm, possessive, pulling her down the alley toward a black motorcycle parked in shadow. No license plate, no identifying marks, the kind of vehicle that existed to disappear. Andrea had never been on a motorcycle. Kai threw a leg over it, the engine roaring to life with a sound like a big cat waking, and gestured for her to climb on behind him. "Hold on," he said. She wrapped her arms around his waist carefully, avoiding the bandages, and felt the hard muscle beneath his shirt, felt his heartbeat against her palms. Steady and strong despite everything, they shot out of the alley like a bullet from a gun. New York blurred around them. Streetlights became smears of gold. Buildings leaned in like spectators watching a race they knew would end badly. Kai drove like someone who'd outrun death before and knew exactly how close to let it breathe on his neck. Andrea pressed her face against his back and held on tighter. They didn't stop until they'd crossed into a different borough, pulled into an abandoned subway station that looked like it hadn't seen a train in 20 years. The entrance was chained shut, but Kai had bolt cutters hidden in a saddlebag. The chains fell away like they were made of thread. Inside, the air smelled like rust and rats and stagnant water. Emergency lighting still functioned in scattered patches, casting everything in sickly green. Kai led her down to the platform, then jumped down onto the tracks. "This is your safe house?" Andrea asked, following him down. "One of them." He moved into a maintenance tunnel, produced a flashlight from somewhere, illuminated a steel door set into the concrete. Another lock, another key that appeared in his hand like magic. "The syndicate doesn't know about this place." "No one does." The door opened onto a space that defied the decay outside. Someone had converted the old maintenance room into a livable bunker camping cot, battery-powered lanterns, shelves stocked with canned food and bottled water, weapons mounted on one wall, knives, guns, something that might have been a grenade. Andrea stared. "How many of these do you have?" "Enough." Kai moved to the shelves, pulled down a first aid kit. His movements were slower now, careful. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving pain in its wake. "Close the door." She did. The sound of its sealing was final, like a coffin closing. Kai sat on the cot, started unbuttoning his shirt. Andrea looked away, then forced herself to look back. Because looking away felt like cowardice, and she'd done enough cowardly things tonight. His torso was a map of violence. Scars layered over scars, some old and silver, some fresh and pink. The bandages were soaked through with blood, not gushing, but seeping. The kind of bleeding that kills you slowly if you ignore it. "You need a hospital," she said. "Hospitals ask questions." He peeled the bandages away with steady hands. The wound beneath was brutal, a machete slash that had carved a canyon across his ribs. Someone had stitched it, but 3 of the stitches had torn. "I need a needle and thread. I'm not a doctor." "Neither am I." He held out the first aid kit. "But we both know how to survive, don't we?" Their eyes met. Something passed between them, recognition of a shared trauma. A mutual understanding that sometimes survival meant doing ugly things with shaking hands. Andrea took the kit. "Lie back." He did, watching her with those unreadable eyes as she threaded the needle. Her hands were steadier than she expected. Muscle memory from a life she'd tried to forget. From emergency field dressings and bullet extractions and all the things they'd taught her before they'd sent her into places that didn't exist on maps. The needle pierced his skin. Kai didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, just kept watching her face like he was trying to read a book written in a language he didn't quite speak. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" he asked quietly. "In the alley. Those weren't the moves of a waitress." Andrea pulled the thread through, tied off the first stitch. "Where did you learn to take a blade to the ribs without screaming?" I asked first. I asked better. She met his gaze, saw the faintest hint of amusement there. "Let's make a deal. I answer one question. You answer one question. Fair trade." "Fair." His hand moved to rest on his stomach, close to where she was working. "Who trained you?" The second stitch. Pull. Tie. Don't think about the sensation of needle through flesh. The way his blood made her fingers stick to the thread. The same people who taught me how to disappear. How to live 100 different lives in 100 different cities. How to become no one. Government. It wasn't a question. Andrea's hands paused. My turn. The men in the alley. You said they were cops. How did you know? Their shoes. Kai's voice was steady despite the needle in his skin. Standard issue NYPD tactical boots. And their formation, they moved like a strike team, not street thugs. Too disciplined. Too clean. His eyes darkened. The syndicate has half the department on payroll. Those men were probably Vice Squad, moonlighting as enforcers. The third stitch. Andrea's stomach turned. So when I killed him, you killed a dirty cop. Still a cop. Kai's hand shifted, his fingers brushing against her wrist. Not grabbing, just there. A point of contact. But he was trying to murder an unarmed man in an alley. Any jury would call it defense of another, would they? Andrea's laugh was bitter. I'm a black woman with no ID who killed a white cop. You think any jury in America would believe my story? Kai was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight. I would testify. I would tell them exactly what happened. That you saved me. That you're innocent. Why? She looked up from her work, met his eyes. You don't know me. Don't owe me anything. Why would you put your neck out for someone who stole from you? His hand moved from her wrist to her face, fingers sliding along her jaw with a tenderness that made her breath catch. His thumb traced her cheekbone, and she realized she was trembling not from fear, but from something more dangerous. Because you made a choice in that alley, Kai said softly. You could have run, could have let me die and taken the watch off my corpse. But you saved me first. You stopped the bleeding before you robbed me. His smile was sharp. That makes you either very stupid or very good. I'm betting on good. You'd lose that bet. Andrea forced herself to focus on the stitching, on the mechanical task instead of the warmth of his hand on her skin. I'm not good. I just couldn't watch someone die. That's the definition of good. That's the definition of weak. No. His fingers tightened slightly, turning her face back to his. Weak would be hiding. Weak would be letting fear make your choices. You ran toward violence to stop it. That's the opposite of weak. Andrea couldn't breathe. He was too close, too intense, looking at her like she was something precious instead of disposable, like she mattered. It had been so long since anyone looked at her like she mattered. Last stitch, she whispered, pulling away to focus on the wound. She tied it off, cut the thread with scissors from the kit. The stitches weren't pretty, but they'd hold. Kai's skin was warm under her fingers as she applied fresh bandages, her hands moving with automatic precision across the landscape of his torso. When she finished, Kai sat up slowly, wincing despite his attempts to hide it. He caught her wrist before she could pull away completely. My turn for a question, he said. You already asked two. Then you owe me one. His thumb pressed against her pulse point again, feeling it race. Why is your name on the syndicate's kill list? And there it was. The question she'd been dreading. The truth that could end whatever fragile alliance they'd built in blood and stitches. Andrea pulled away, stood up, put distance between them. I testified. Against who? Against a syndicate operation in Miami. 3 years ago. I was working undercover for the FBI. Deep cover, embedded in a trafficking ring they were running through the port. The words tasted like ash. I brought them evidence. Names, dates, routes. Enough to put away 37 people for life. Kai's expression didn't change. And the trial never happened. Someone in the FBI leaked my identity before the indictments were sealed. The syndicate killed my handler, killed my backup, killed everyone who knew I existed. Her hands were shaking again. I ran, changed my name, changed everything. Thought I'd buried it deep enough that they'd never find me. But they did. They always do. She turned to face him. That's why my name is on the list. I'm not just a witness. I'm the witness. The one who could still testify if the case ever got reopened. As long as I'm alive. I'm a threat. Kai stood, moving toward her with that same inevitable quality. And Kai Jin, the butcher, was assigned to kill you. Yes, but I didn't. No. She met his gaze. Why? He stopped inches away, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off his skin. Could see the way his pupils dilated in the dim light. Because I read your file. All of it. Not just the syndicate version, the real one. I have contacts in the FBI, people who owe me favors. I know what you really did in Miami. Andrea's heart stopped. What did I do? You saved 43 women and children from those shipping containers. Got them out before you called in the raid. Made sure they were safe before you burned everything down." His voice dropped. "The syndicate calls you a traitor. I call you a hero. I'm not." "Don't." His hand found her face again, forced her to look at him. "Don't diminish what you did. You risked everything to save people no one else cared about. People the world pretends don't exist. That takes courage. That takes strength." His forehead almost touched hers. "That makes you someone worth protecting." The air between them was electric, charged with something Andrea didn't want to name. She could feel her body leaning toward his, could feel the magnetic pull of someone who understood violence, and still chose mercy when it mattered. "We should sleep," she whispered. "Figure out next steps in the morning." Kai's smile was slow, dangerous. "I don't sleep much. Hazard of the profession. Then keep watch." She moved past him toward the cot. "Wake me if someone tries to kill us." "Andrea." She stopped, looked back. His expression was unreadable in the green emergency lighting, but his eyes burned. "Thank you. For the stitches. For the alley. For not running when you had the chance. I'm still here because you said I'd be dead by morning if I left." "You're still here," Kai said quietly. "Because you choose to be. Don't lie to yourself about that." Andrea didn't have an answer. She lay down on the cot, turned her face to the wall, and listened to Kai move around the bunker behind her, checking weapons, securing the door, doing whatever it is monsters do when they pretend to be men. But as sleep finally dragged her under, the last thing she felt was the weight of his jacket settling over her like a shield, and the last thought she had before darkness took her was that maybe, just maybe, she'd found the one person in the world more dangerous than her past. Morning came in shades of green emergency lighting that never truly changed. Andrea woke to the smell of instant coffee and the sound of Kai's voice speaking rapid Korean into a phone. She kept her eyes closed, listening, trying to catch the cadence even though she didn't understand the words. His tone shifted, cold, clipped, angry, then softer, almost pleading, then cold again, final, before the call ended with a sharp snap. "You can stop pretending to sleep," Kai said in English. Andrea opened her eyes, sat up. He was shirtless again, the fresh bandages stark white against his skin, holding out a cup of coffee that steamed in the cool underground air. She took it. The cup was warm against her palms. "Who were you talking to?" "Someone who no longer exists." He sat on the floor across from her, his back against the concrete wall. "I just burned my last bridge out of this city." "What do you mean?" Kai was quiet for a long moment, staring at his own coffee like it held answers. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of confession. "I told you the syndicate sent me to kill you. What I didn't tell you was why they chose me specifically." Andrea set down her cup. "I'm listening. 3 months ago, I was assigned to eliminate a city councilman who was pushing too hard on organized crime legislation. Standard job. I tracked him for 2 weeks, learned his patterns, found the perfect window." Kai's jaw tightened. "But when I got to his house, he wasn't alone. His daughter was there, 8 years old. She came downstairs for water, saw me standing in her kitchen with a gun." The underground silence felt heavy, oppressive. "She asked me if I was a friend of her daddy's," Kai continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "Asked if I wanted to meet her new puppy. She was so innocent, so completely unaware that she was standing 3 feet from death." He looked up, met Andrea's gaze. "I couldn't do it. Couldn't pull the trigger with her in the house. So I left. Called my handler, told him the window closed, that I'd try again later, but you didn't." "No. I sabotaged every attempt, delayed, deflected, found reasons why the timing wasn't right. The syndicate started to suspect I'd gone soft, started watching me closer. That's when they assigned me your case a test. Kill the federal witness, prove my loyalty, or prove I'd become a liability." Understanding crystallized in Andrea's mind. "The men in the alley were sent because I failed you too, because I looked at your file and saw another innocent person about to die for doing the right thing, and I couldn't." His voice cracked, just slightly. "I couldn't be the person who ends goodness in this world anymore." Andrea moved without thinking, crossing the distance between them, kneeling in front of him. "So you tried to protect me. I tried to get the kill order buried. Tried to make it look like you'd left the city, that the intel was bad. But someone in the syndicate didn't believe me. They sent those detectives to the alley to eliminate us, both you as the target, me as the traitor. You weren't coming to kill me. The realization hit her like a physical blow. You were coming to warn me. Kai's eyes were dark, haunted. I was coming to get you out. Had a car waiting 3 blocks from the Velvet Room, fake passport, enough cash to get you to Canada. I was going to put you in that car and tell you to drive until you hit a border, then keep driving. Why? Andrea's hands found his face, forcing him to look at her. Why risk everything for a stranger? Because I'm tired. The words came out raw, broken. Tired of being the monster. Tired of waking up with blood under my nails and dead eyes in my nightmares. Tired of being the butcher. His hands covered hers, pressed them harder against his face like he needed the contact to stay grounded. You were supposed to be my redemption, my one good deed before I disappeared forever, and then I saved you instead. And then you saved me. His laugh was bitter. Ironic, isn't it? The woman I was trying to protect ended up protecting me. The executioner got executed, and his would-be victim became his guardian angel. Andrea's chest ached. She understood the exhaustion in his voice, understood the soul-deep weariness that came from surviving things that should have killed you, from doing things you could never undo. She'd lived it herself in Miami, in the months after the trial collapsed, in every moment since when she'd felt more ghost than human. You're not a monster, she said quietly. Monsters don't refuse to kill children. Monsters don't try to save witnesses. Monsters don't. She stopped, swallowed hard. Monsters don't look at people like me and see something worth protecting. Kai's hands tightened on hers. What do you see when you look at me, Andrea? The question hung between them, dangerous and desperate. She should lie. Should say she saw a criminal, a killer, a man whose very existence was a threat. But Andrea was tired of lying, tired of pretending, tired of being no one. I see someone who's trying, she said. Someone who's fighting against what they were made to be. Someone who... Her voice dropped to almost nothing. Someone who makes me feel less alone. The space between them disappeared. Kai's forehead pressed against hers, his breath warm on her lips, his hands sliding from hers to her waist, pulling her closer until she was straddling his lap, until there was no distance left at all. This is a terrible idea, he whispered against her mouth. The worst. Her hands found his shoulders, felt the corded muscle beneath skin that was too warm, too alive, too real. We're both running from death. This can't end well. Nothing in my life has ever ended well. She pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. At least this time I'll have chosen it. Kai's control shattered. His mouth found hers with a hunger that stole her breath, a kiss that tasted like coffee and desperation, and something darker underneath. His hands gripped her waist hard enough to bruise, holding her against him like she might disappear if he loosened his grip even slightly. Andrea kissed him back with equal ferocity, her fingers threading through his hair, her body pressing against his until she could feel his heartbeat hammering against her chest. This was reckless, stupid, dangerous, everything she'd promised herself she'd never do again. But his mouth was hot and demanding. His hands were sliding beneath her shirt to find bare skin, and for the first time in 3 years, Andrea felt something other than fear. She felt alive. Kai's phone shattered the moment, vibrating against the concrete floor with a sound like a rattlesnake's warning. They broke apart, both breathing hard. Kai grabbed the phone, looked at the screen, and every trace of heat drained from his face. What? Andrea asked. He turned the phone toward her. A text message, no sender ID. We know you're alive. We know she's with you. 48 hours to deliver the girl, or we release your real identity to Interpol. They found us, Andrea breathed. Not us, they're guessing. But Kai's voice was tight. They know I survived. Know someone helped me. But they don't know where we are. If they did, they'd send a kill team, not a text. What do they mean about your real identity? Kai's jaw clenched. Kai-Jin isn't my name. It's a cover identity the syndicate created when they brought me to America 12 years ago. My real name, my real history. If that information gets released to international law enforcement, I'll be wanted for crimes in 6 different countries. Crimes I actually committed, under orders, before I knew any better. So we have 48 hours. We have 48 hours to either deliver you to them or figure out how to disappear so completely they'll never find us. He stood, started pulling on a clean shirt from supplies stacked in the corner. There's a third option, which is, Kai turned to her, and his expression was pure predator. We burn them first. The syndicate thinks I'm a traitor, thinks you're a weakness they can exploit. We prove them wrong. We take the fight to them, destroy the organization from the inside, and make sure neither of us has to run ever again. Andrea should have been horrified, should have refused, should have demanded the disappearing option. But she was so tired of running, so tired of looking over her shoulder, so tired of being no one. How? She asked instead. Kai's smile was sharp enough to cut. With the one thing they think they took from me, the watch. He pulled it from his pocket, the platinum timepiece that had started this entire nightmare. They don't know you still have the microfilm. Don't know we saw the kill list. That list doesn't just have witness names, it has dates, locations, assignments, evidence of every murder the syndicate has ordered in the last 5 years. Understanding dawned. We give it to the FBI. Better. Kai pulled out a laptop from under the cot, the kind with too many security features to be legal. We give it to the media. Every news outlet, every investigative journalist, every person with a platform. We make it impossible to bury, impossible to cover up. We burn the entire organization down with their own evidence. They'll kill us. They're already trying to kill us. His eyes met hers. At least this way, we die knowing we took them with us. Andrea thought about Miami, about 43 women and children in shipping containers, about all the people the syndicate had hurt, all the lives they'd destroyed, all the blood they'd spilled. She thought about being no one, being nothing, being a ghost haunting her own life. Then she thought about Kai's hands on her waist, his mouth on hers, the way he looked at her like she was real. Let's burn them, she said. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Upload the microfilm to 20 different encrypted servers simultaneously, set to auto-release to pre-selected media contacts if they didn't input a cancellation code every 12 hours. Insurance against being killed before the story broke. Mutually assured destruction, digital style. But first, they needed high-speed internet and equipment capable of processing the microfilm, which meant leaving the safety of the underground bunker, which meant risking exposure. My burner phone is voice only. No data, Kai said, staring at the hard drive in his hand. And these files are massive. We need a hardline connection and high-speed processing power to upload them before the encryption locks us out. I know a place, Andrea said, pulling on a jacket Kai had retrieved from his storage. My brother, he's a tech fixer, works out of a warehouse in Red Hook. If anyone can digitize that film quickly and quietly, it's him. Kai's expression darkened. You have family in the city? You never mentioned that. We're not close. An understatement. Andrea hadn't spoken to Marcus in 11 months, not since he'd borrowed $5,000 and disappeared for 3 weeks. But he owes me. And he has access to the kind of equipment we need. Can you trust him? Andrea hesitated. He's family. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. She met Kai's gaze. We need this. Unless you have a better option? Kai was quiet for a long moment, then shook his head. No. But we go armed, and at the first sign of trouble, we leave. No heroics, no second chances. They took the motorcycle through back streets and industrial zones, avoiding main roads and security cameras. Andrea's arms wrapped around Kai's waist, her face pressed against his back, breathing in the scent of him mixed with leather and gasoline. Red Hook looked like the end of the world, abandoned warehouses and chain-link fences, streets with more potholes than pavement. Marcus's place was a converted shipping facility with blacked-out windows and a steel door that looked like it could withstand a battering ram. Andrea knocked 3 slow, 2 fast, 1 slow. The code from childhood, from before everything fell apart. The door opened 6 inches, Marcus's face appearing in the gap. He was thinner than she remembered, his eyes shadowed with the look of someone who slept too little and worried too much. Nay? Disbelief colored his voice. Jesus Christ, I thought you were dead. Can we come in? Marcus's gaze shifted to Kai, taking in the expensive motorcycle, the predatory stance, the way he moved like violence wrapped in skin. Who's your friend? Someone who needs your help. Please, Marcus. Something in her voice must have convinced him. The door opened wider. 5 minutes. Then you're gone. The warehouse interior was chaos organized into technical genius server racks, workbenches covered in disassembled electronics, screens displaying code and security feeds. The air smelled like solder and energy drinks. Nice setup, Kai said, his eyes cataloging exits and threats. I do what I do. Marcus closed the door, engaged 3 separate locks. What do you need, Nay? Money? Papers? Because if you're running from whoever put that haunted look in your eyes, I can get you across the Canadian border by. We need you to digitize something. Andrea pulled out the watch, opened it, revealed the microfilm. High resolution, encrypted, uploaded to multiple secure servers. How fast can you do it? Marcus whistled low. Depends what's on it, but with my rig, 40 minutes, maybe less. He reached for the watch. Kai's hand shot out, caught his wrist. Not yet. First tell us your price. Family doesn't charge family. Everyone charges someone. Kai's grip tightened slightly. What do you want? Marcus pulled his arm free, rubbed his wrist. You're right. I want to know what I'm digitizing. Because if this is some cartel shit, some gang war evidence, I'm not touching it. I've stayed alive this long by knowing when to say no. Andrea exchanged a glance with Kai. They'd agreed not to tell anyone the full story, not to involve anyone else in the target that was painted on their backs, but Marcus was already involved just by letting them in. It's a kill list, she said quietly, from the Onyx Syndicate. Witnesses they've eliminated, witnesses they're planning to eliminate. We're going to leak it to the press, burn down the organization. Marcus's face went pale. The Onyx Syndicate? Are you insane? Do you have any idea what they'll do if they find out you? He stopped, looked at Kai more closely. Wait, I know you. Your face. I've seen it on. His eyes widened. Holy shit, you're the butcher. You're Kai Jin. Was, Kai corrected. I'm retired. Retired? Marcus's laugh was hysterical. You don't retire from the syndicate. You die or you... He looked at Andrea. Please tell me you didn't save this man's life. Please tell me you're not the reason the entire underworld thinks he's dead. Andrea's silence was answer enough. Jesus Christ. Marcus paced, ran his hands through his hair. You've started a war. Every crew in New York is going to be looking for you. The syndicate, the Russians, the triads, everyone wants proof. The butcher is dead. And you brought him to my door? We'll pay you, Kai said calmly. Name your price. My price? Marcus spun to face him. My price is you get the hell out of my warehouse before you get me killed too. I'm not. The sound of tires squealing outside cut him off. Kai moved instantly, gun drawn, moving to the window. He looked out, and every muscle in his body went taut. How many people know about this location? No one. It's off the books. Marcus stopped. Wait, I told some guys I play poker with that I had a new workshop, but I didn't give them the address. I just said Red Hook. You told people? Andrea's voice was sharp. It was just poker talk, just... The steel door shook with the impact of something heavy. Once, twice, 3 times, then voices outside, muffled but clear enough. We know you're in there, Butcher. Send out the girl and we'll make it quick. Marcus's face drained of all color. Oh God, what did I do? Kai's expression was ice. You sold us out. I didn't, I swear I didn't. But Marcus's eyes were darting to his phone on the workbench, and Andrea saw it, the screen still lit. A text thread open. She grabbed the phone. Read the messages. Marcus, found my sister. She's in trouble, needs help. Unknown. Where? Marcus, my Red Hook place. Bringing her here now. Unknown. Good. We'll take care of her. $50K wired to your account. The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. You called them? You sold me out for $50,000? I didn't know they wanted to kill you. Marcus's voice cracked. They said they just wanted to talk. Said you were a witness to something. That they needed to keep you safe. Kai moved. Fast. He grabbed Marcus by the throat, slammed him against the wall hard enough to rattle the servers. She's your sister. I have debts, Marcus choked out. Gambling debts. The kind of debts that get you killed if you don't pay. They said they'd clear everything, said they'd... The door exploded inward. 3 men, tactical gear, automatic weapons. They swept the room with military precision, and Andrea saw it in their eyes they weren't here to talk. Kai released Marcus, pushed Andrea behind him, his gun already up and firing. The first man went down with a hole in his throat. The second took 2 rounds to the chest. But the third got a shot off. Kai jerked, stumbled. Blood bloomed across his left shoulder, soaking through his shirt in seconds. Andrea screamed, caught him before he fell. The third man advanced, weapon trained on them, finger tightening on the trigger, and Marcus hit him from behind with a server rack. Metal met skull with a sickening crunch. The man dropped. Silence. Just for a moment. Just long enough for Marcus to stare at his hands, at the blood on them, at what he'd just done. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Nay, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they'd..." More sounds outside. Engines, voices, reinforcements. Kai struggled to his feet, his good hand pressed against the bullet wound. "Back exit, now." "There isn't one," Marcus said. "This building has one door and then make one." Kai grabbed a workbench, shoved it toward the rear wall. "Explosives. You have anything that burns?" Marcus stared at him like he was insane. Then understanding dawned. "The battery bank. If we overload it, it'll do it." While Marcus worked, Andrea pressed her hands against Kai's wound, trying to slow the bleeding. His face was too pale, his breathing too shallow. "Hey," she said fiercely. "Stay with me. Don't you dare check out now." Kai's smile was weak. Bossy. Desperate. She kissed him, hard and fast, tasting blood and fear. "I'm not done being yours yet. So you don't get to die." "Yes, ma'am." The battery bank started smoking. Marcus backed away. 30 seconds. Maybe less. When it blows, the rear wall should. The explosion ripped through the warehouse like an angry god. Andrea felt Kai's arms wrap around her, felt him turn his body to shield her from the blast, felt heat and pressure and chaos. Then they were through the hole in the wall, stumbling into the alley behind the warehouse, ears ringing, lungs burning with smoke and chemical fumes. Marcus was with them, somehow his face blackened with soot. "This way. I know Kai shot him. Not to kill." The bullet took Marcus in the thigh, dropped him to the pavement, screaming. "What the hell?" Andrea shouted. "He betrayed you." Kai's voice was cold, final. "He called the syndicate, told them where to find us, led them right to you." He looked down at Marcus, writhing on the ground. "That's a mercy bullet. The syndicate will find him here, and they'll know he failed to deliver. They'll finish what I started. He's my brother." "He sold you for money." Kai grabbed her arm, pulled her away even as Marcus screamed after them. "He chose his debt over your life. That's not family, Andrea. That's just blood." They ran. Behind them, the warehouse burned, and Marcus's screams faded into the distance, and Andrea felt something inside her break that she hadn't even known was still whole. She'd saved a killer, and the killer had shot her brother, and somehow, she couldn't bring herself to hate him for it. The abandoned church in Queens still had most of its roof. Kai picked the lock on the side entrance, and they stumbled into darkness that smelled like mold and forgotten prayers. Andrea's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the flashlight while Kai collapsed against a pew. Blood soaked his entire left side now. Too much blood. The kind of blood loss that shut organs down, that made the world gray at the edges. "First aid kit," he managed. "My jacket, inside pocket." She found it a compact trauma kit, military grade. Her hands moved on autopilot, cutting away fabric, packing the wound, applying pressure. The bullet had gone through, which was good. It had hit high on the shoulder, missing the bone. It missed the brachial artery by a fraction of an inch, tearing through muscle instead. Painful, bleeding heavily, but survivable. "You need a hospital," she said for the second time in 2 days. "Can't." His voice was getting weaker. "Gunshot wound. They report it. Police come asking questions. Connect me to the warehouse, to the bodies." He coughed. "To your brother." Andrea's hands stilled on the bandage. "You shot Marcus." "Yes." "He was calling for help, screaming my name. He sold you out." Kai's eyes found hers, dark and unrepentant. "Would have gotten you killed for $50,000. That's not love, Andrea. That's business. He's all the family I have left." "No." Kai's good hand found her face, thumb smearing blood across her cheek. "I'm your family now. Whether you want me or not." She should pull away. Should be horrified. Should be running. Should be anything except leaning into his touch like it was the only real thing in her world. This is insane, she whispered. Agreed. His thumb traced her jaw. You should leave. While you can. Get on a bus. Go somewhere. I'll never find you. Start over. Be someone new. And you? I'll finish what we started. Get the microfilm released. Burn down the syndicate. Die knowing I took them with me. His smile was sad. It's what I was always meant to do. This was just a detour. Andrea looked at him, at this man who'd tried to save her before they even met, who'd chosen mercy over orders, who'd shot her brother to protect her. This man who'd kissed her like she was precious and fought like she was worth dying for. I'm not leaving, she said. Andrea. I'm not leaving. She finished the bandage with firm movements. You said I'm yours. That works both ways. You're mine too, and I don't abandon what's mine. Something shifted in Kai's expression, surprise maybe, or hope, or something too dangerous to name. Even after I shot your brother? Especially after. She helped him sit up straighter. He made his choice. You made yours. I'm making mine. And what's your choice? She kissed him. Slow this time, deliberate, tasting blood and defiance, and a future that probably didn't exist, but she'd claim it anyway. We finish this together. Or we don't finish it at all. Kai's hand tangled in her hair, pulled her closer, deepened the kiss until they were both breathing hard, and the pain and danger faded to background noise. When they finally broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. We need to move. Can't stay here long. They'll be sweeping the city, checking every known safe house, every connection. Where do we go? Somewhere they'd never look. Kai's smile turned sharp. We go to the place where it all started, the Velvet Room. The club looked different in daylight, empty, the glamour stripped away to reveal stained carpets and chipped paint. But the VIP section was still there. The alley behind still reeked of old rain and violence. Kai moved through the space like a ghost returning to haunt the scene of his death. He stopped at the spot where he'd fallen, where Andrea had bound his wounds with her apron, where she'd stolen the watch that changed everything. Why are we here? Andrea asked. Because the syndicate owns this place. Runs weapons and drugs through the basement, launders money through the books. Kai moved behind the bar, started pressing seemingly random bottles. A section of the floor clicked open, revealing stairs descending into darkness. And because they'd never think to look for us in their own headquarters. The basement was everything. Andrea expected crates of weapons, stacks of cash bound in plastic, computers and servers humming with illegal activity. But it was the last room that made her blood run cold. Files. Thousands of them. Organized, labeled, detailed. Kai opened one at random. Inside, photos of a man, his wife, his 2 children, a school schedule, a route map, a date, and a final notation. Eliminated. This is it, Andrea breathed. This is their entire operation. Every hit, every job, every piece of evidence needed to destroy them. Kai was already booting up one of the computers. We don't just release the microfilm. We release all of it. Every file, every record, every order. We make it so complete, so overwhelming, that no one can claim it's fake. How long will it take to upload? Kai checked the servers. 3 hours, maybe 4. He looked at her. And the syndicate does surprise inspections of this location every 12 hours. If they come while we're here, then we fight. Andrea. Then we fight, she repeated. You said I'm yours. You said we do this together. So stop trying to protect me and let me be what I am. And what are you? She grabbed a pistol from the weapons crate, checked the magazine with practiced ease. Someone who's tired of running. Someone who's ready to burn the world down if it means finally being free. Kai's smile was proud. That's my girl. They worked in synchronized silence, Kai at the computers, uploading, encrypting, setting up the auto-release protocols. Andrea at the door, watching security feeds, tracking movement patterns, ready to sound the alarm if anything moved in the darkness outside. 2 hours passed. Then 3. Kai's fingers flew across the keyboard, lines of code scrolling faster than Andrea could follow. Almost done. Just need to. The security feed blinked. Andrea's blood went cold. We have company. On the screen, 3 black SUVs pulling up to the club's front entrance. Men in suits pouring out, weapons concealed but visible to someone who knew how to look. How many? Kai asked, not looking up from his work. 15. Maybe 20. She grabbed more weapons, started loading magazines. Can you finish in time? Need 5 more minutes. You have 3. The sounds above them. Footsteps. Voices. The club's main door opening. They were sweeping the building, clearing rooms methodically, moving toward the basement access. 4 minutes. Andrea positioned herself at the basement stairs, weapon up, breathing controlled. She'd done this before in another life, held choke points against superior numbers, trusted in training and desperation. 3 minutes. The footsteps were directly above now, voices filtering through the floorboards. Check the basement. Boss wants every inch cleared. 2 minutes. The door at the top of the stairs rattled. Someone testing it, finding it locked. A brief pause, then the unmistakable sound of lockpicks working tumblers. Kai, Andrea said quietly. I know. 30 seconds. 1 minute. The lock clicked open. Light spilled down the stairs. A man's silhouette appeared, weapon drawn, descending slowly. Andrea let him take 3 steps before she fired. He went down, but his body tumbling down the stairs triggered an immediate response from above gunfire. Controlled bursts, suppressing fire meant to keep heads down while the team advanced. Done. Kai grabbed her hand, pulled her away from the stairs toward the back of the basement. There's a service tunnel. Leads to the subway maintenance system. Go. They ran as the basement filled with tactical teams, as bullets sparked off metal pipes and concrete walls. Kai shoved her into the tunnel first, covered their retreat with precise shots that bought them seconds. Then they were in darkness, running blind through maintenance tunnels that smelled like rats and sewage. Kai's hand in hers, the only anchor to reality. Behind them, shouts, flashlights, the sound of pursuit. Ahead, nothing but darkness and the desperate hope that they'd live long enough to see their work destroy the people trying to kill them. They burst out of the tunnel into a subway station just as a train was pulling away. Kai yanked open the rear maintenance door. Illegal, dangerous, definitely against regulations, and they hauled themselves inside as the train picked up speed. They collapsed on the floor of the rattling car, gasping for breath, covered in grime and blood and sweat. Andrea started laughing. Couldn't help it. Hysterical, relieved, alive laughter that echoed off the metal walls. Kai looked at her like she'd lost her mind. What's funny? We did it. She pulled out her phone, the burner Kai had given her with the upload confirmation. It's done. Everything's uploading. In 6 hours, every major news outlet in the world will have every file, every record, every piece of evidence. We're still being hunted. I know. She grabbed his face, kissed him hard. But we won. They just don't know it yet. They rode the train to the end of the line, then walked. Kai's shoulder had stopped bleeding, but the wound needed real medical attention soon. Andrea could see fever starting to set in, could see the way he was pushing through pain that would have dropped most men. There's a clinic, she said. In Chinatown, run by a woman who doesn't ask questions. She patched me up once, after Miami. How much does she charge? Whatever you can afford. Andrea guided him down side streets, avoiding cameras and main roads. But there's something I need to know first. Kai looked at her through eyes slightly glazed with pain. What? The bomb. In your file, the one I read there was mention of a dirty bomb planted somewhere in the city. A fail-safe, in case the syndicate ever fell. She stopped walking, forced him to look at her. Was that real? Kai's silence was answer enough. Where is it? Her voice was steady, but ice was forming in her chest. The 9th precinct. He swayed slightly, caught himself. Underground. Below the holding cells. It's been there for 7 years, dormant, waiting for activation. And the watch is the arming key. I told you it was linked to biometrics, that it signaled my death. What I didn't tell you was that it also had a secondary function. He met her gaze. If the watch goes more than 72 hours without receiving the correct deactivation code, it automatically activates the bomb. Andrea's world tilted. How long has it been since you entered the code? 68 hours. I hadn't reset it for 2 days before the attack in the alley. I was already laying low. Jesus Christ. She grabbed his arms. We have 4 hours before it goes off? 3.5. Accounting for the delay in my math. Why didn't you tell me? Because there's nothing you can do about it. His voice cracked. The bomb is in a secure location, surrounded by police. The deactivation code changes every 72 hours and is only sent to my syndicate handler's phone. Without that phone, without that code, the bomb detonates automatically. So we get the phone. The handler is in a secure facility. Underground bunker, 24-hour security, biometric locks. Even if we could get to him and we can't, he'd never give us the code. Andrea's mind raced. Then we evacuate the precinct, call in a bomb threat, get everyone out. And when the bomb squad arrives and doesn't find anything, when the syndicate realizes we're alive and trying to disarm their insurance policy, they'll detonate it remotely just out of spite. Kai's expression was bleak. There's no good option here. We can save the city or we can burn the syndicate. We can't do both. That's not acceptable. It's reality. He started walking again, unsteady but determined. In 3.5 hours, either I die entering that code and the syndicate knows I'm alive, or 47 police officers and everyone in the surrounding blocks die when the bomb detonates. Those are the only options. No. Andrea grabbed his arm, stopped him. There's always another option. We just have to find it. The clinic in Chinatown was exactly as Andrea remembered, a back alley door marked only with Chinese characters. A buzzer that played a melody instead of a tone. The woman who answered was in her 60s, gray hair pulled back severely, eyes that had seen everything and judged nothing. Andrea, she said. I hoped I would never see you again. May, I need help. May's gaze shifted to Kai, took in the blood and the pallor. Gunshot? Through and through, upper shoulder. Come. She opened the door wider, led them into a back room that smelled like antiseptic and herbs. Lay down. This will hurt. While May worked on Kai cleaning, stitching, muttering in Mandarin about foolish people who play with guns, Andrea paced. Her mind wouldn't stop circling the problem. A bomb. A code. 3 hours. Your friend is very stubborn, May said in English, tying off the last suture. The infection is starting. He needs antibiotics. Rest. Not running through the city bleeding. We don't have time for rest. Andrea stopped pacing. May, do you still have connections to the Tongs? The old networks? May's expression became carefully neutral. I am a doctor. I have no connections to organized crime. May. The older woman sighed. What do you need? Access to the syndicate's secure facility. The one in Brooklyn, under the waterfront. That's a death wish. It's the only wish we have left. Andrea knelt beside May. Please. We're trying to stop something terrible. Something that will kill innocent people. We just need a way in. May looked at her for a long moment. Then at Kai, who was watching them with fevered eyes. The Tongs owe the syndicate nothing. In fact, there is old blood between us. Very old. Very bad blood. She moved to a cabinet, pulled out a phone. I make one call. One. And then you never come back here. Understood? Understood. May dialed, spoke rapid Mandarin that Andrea couldn't follow. Listened. There is a man, she said slowly. He works maintenance at the facility. Janitorial. He is. Sympathetic to those who oppose the syndicate. His daughter. She stopped. It doesn't matter. He will leave the service entrance unlocked at midnight. You will have 15 minutes before the next security sweep. That's enough. It's not enough. It's suicide. May looked between them. But I think you both know that already. They spent the remaining hours planning. Kai drew maps from memory, the facility layout, security rotations, camera blind spots. Andrea memorized every detail, every turn, every potential point of failure. The handler's name is Yoon, Kai said, his voice stronger after the antibiotics May had administered. Mid-40s, Korean, former military. He's smart, disciplined, won't scare easily. Where will he be at midnight? His quarters. He keeps to a scheduled dinner at 6, paperwork until 11, sleep by midnight. We'll have maybe 30 seconds of surprise before he can trigger an alarm, and the code will be on his phone. Encrypted, probably. But I know his backup protocols. I can crack it. Kai looked at her. If we get that far, we'll get that far. Andrea checked the weapons May had reluctantly provided. Not much. A small pistol. A tactical knife. We have to. At 11:30, they left the clinic, moved through streets that were emptying as midnight approached. The waterfront facility looked like any other warehouse from the outside: corrugated metal, faded signage, advertising, shipping, logistics. The service entrance was unlocked as promised. Inside, industrial lighting, concrete floors, the hum of HVAC systems. They moved like shadows, following the route Kai had mapped. 2 security guards passed within feet of where they pressed against a maintenance alcove. Neither looked their way. Down a stairwell, through a corridor lined with doors that probably held terrible secrets. At the end, a reinforced door with a keypad. Kai produced a small device from his pocket, connected it to the keypad. Numbers scrolled across a tiny screen until they locked on a sequence. The door clicked open. Yoon's quarters were Spartan: a bed, a desk, a single bookshelf. And Yoon himself, sitting at the desk in sleep clothes, gun already in hand and aimed at the door. "Kai-jin," he said in Korean accented English. "You're supposed to be dead." "So I've heard." Kai kept his hands visible. "I need the deactivation code." "No. The bomb will detonate. Innocent people will die." "That's the point." Yoon's gun didn't waver. "The syndicate falls. The insurance policy triggers. It's always been the plan." The plan was insurance, not mass murder. Kai took a step forward. "You have children, Yoon. 2 daughters. Think about what you're protecting." "I'm protecting the organization that feeds my family, that puts my daughters through school. That..." His eyes shifted to Andrea. "You brought the witness, the one you were supposed to kill." "I brought the woman who saved my life." Kai's voice was soft, dangerous. "And if you don't give me that code, I'm going to have to take it from you." "You can try." Yoon's finger tightened on the trigger. Andrea moved. Fast. She threw the tactical knife not at Yoon, but at the lamp on his desk. It shattered, plunged the room into darkness. Gunfire, muzzle flash illuminating chaos. Kai dove right, rolled, came up shooting. Andrea went left, low, heard Yoon's grunt of pain as one of Kai's bullets found flesh. Then Kai was on him, gun pressed against Yoon's temple. "Phone. Now." Yoon laughed. Blood bubbled on his lips. "You shot me in the gut. I'm dead anyway. Why would I give you anything?" "Because your daughters deserve better than growing up knowing their father let a bomb kill children just to protect criminals." Kai's voice was gentle, almost sad. "Be the man they think you are, Yoon. Give me the phone." For a long moment, nothing. Just breathing in the darkness, pain and death hanging in the air. Then Yoon reached into his pocket with a shaking hand, pulled out his phone. Unlocked it. "The code. Changes in 43 minutes. You'll never make it in time." Kai took the phone. "Watch me." They left Yoon there, bleeding out on his own floor. No time for mercy. No time for anything but running. Andrea drove. She'd hot-wired a car from the facility parking lot, while Kai worked on Yoon's phone, manually bypassing the security protocols using backdoor codes he'd memorized from his days building the system. "Got it," he said as they raced through empty streets. "But the deactivation has to be entered on site, at the bomb itself, the 9th precinct. The 9th precinct." They pulled up 3 blocks away, abandoned the car, approached on foot. The precinct was quiet at this hour graveyard shift, minimal staff. "How do we get to the basement?" Andrea asked. "We don't." Kai pointed to a manhole cover. "Maintenance tunnels. They connect to the old holding cells. We go under." Of course they did. The tunnels were worse than the subway, smaller, darker, the smell of decades of sewage and decay. Kai led the way with a pocket light, counting junctions, following a mental map that Andrea prayed was accurate. "There." He pointed to a ladder leading up to a hatch. "That's directly under the old holding level. Bomb should be 30 feet north." They climbed. The hatch was locked, but Kai shot the lock off, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. They emerged into a basement that looked like it hadn't been used in years. Dust, mold, walls that wept moisture. And in the corner, behind a false panel that Kai pried open, the bomb. It looked almost mundane. A steel case, wires, a digital display counting down. 0 hours, 27 minutes, and 43 seconds. 27 minutes. Kai connected his phone to the bomb's interface. "The watch," he snapped. Andrea handed it to him. He slotted the platinum timepiece into a circular recess on the bomb's casing. The mechanism clicked, completing the circuit. Then he started entering the code. Andrea watched the time tick down. 0 hours 26 minutes and 12 seconds. 0 hours 25 minutes and 47 seconds. Come on, she whispered. Come on. Kai's fingers flew across the screen. The bomb beeped. Numbers scrolled. Then froze. Deactivation code accepted. Device disarmed. They both released breath they hadn't known they were holding. We did it, Andrea said. We did it. Kai pulled her against him, kissed her hard and desperate. We actually did it. Kai snatched the watch back from the console and shoved it into his pocket. Let's go. Above them. Footsteps. Voices. Someone had heard the gunshot on the hatch. We need to go, Andrea said. We need to go. They climbed back down into the tunnels, disappeared into darkness before the police could find them, emerged 3 blocks away, filthy and exhausted and alive. The sun was rising. Kai's phone chimed. A news alert. Breaking. Massive data leak exposes organized crime network. Thousands of documents released. They'd done it. All of it. Disarmed the bomb, released the files, survived the night. What now? Andrea asked. Kai looked at her. At this woman who'd saved him, who'd fought beside him, who'd chosen him over safety. Now we disappear, become new people, start somewhere they'll never find us. Or, Andrea said slowly, we stay. We testify. We make sure every single person on that list goes to prison. We finish what we started. That's dangerous. Everything about us is dangerous. She took his hand. But at least we'll be dangerous together. Kai's smile was slow, genuine, the first real smile she'd seen from him. Together. I like the sound of that. The FBI took them into custody within 12 hours. Not arrested protective custody, they called it, though the armed guards and safe house in rural Virginia felt like prison anyway. Special Agent Victoria Reeves was in charge of their case. 50s, sharp-eyed, the kind of woman who'd spent a career not taking anyone's shit. Your data dump just triggered the largest organized crime investigation in U.S. history, she said, sitting across from them in the safe house's kitchen. 16 states, 4 countries, hundreds of suspects. You've made a lot of powerful people very angry. Good, Andrea said. Reeves hesitated, then pulled a smaller file from the stack. We also picked up your brother, Andrea. Fire and rescue got him out of the warehouse. He's in federal custody, undergoing surgery for his leg. He's cooperating fully in exchange for a reduced sentence. Andrea felt a knot in her chest loosen. She didn't forgive him, not yet. But she was glad he wasn't dead. Reeves smiled. I like you. You have a backbone. She spread folders on the table. But here's the problem. The Onyx Syndicate is like a hydra. You cut off the head, 2 more grow back. The files you released are incredible evidence, but evidence needs witnesses to contextualize it, to testify about what it all means. We'll testify, Kai said. Will you? Because the moment you step into a courtroom, every remaining syndicate member will know exactly where you are. Your faces will be on every news channel, your names in every database. You'll be painted as criminals, traitors, unreliable witnesses. Reeves leaned forward. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you for what comes next. What does come next? Andrea asked. Trials, plural, could take years. You'll be sequestered, protected, moved from safe house to safe house. No contact with the outside world, no social media, no friends, no family. Just you, your testimony, and the hope that the system you're trusting actually works. Kai and Andrea exchanged a glance. They'd been through too much to back out now. We're in, Andrea said. The trials started 6 months later. The media called it the trial of the century. Criminal RICO, charges against 247 defendants. Murder, racketeering, corruption, human trafficking. The evidence was overwhelming, but the defense teams were expensive and vicious. Andrea testified first. She sat in the witness box and told the story of Miami, of 43 people in shipping containers, of how she'd risked everything to save them. The defense tried to paint her as an opportunist, a fame seeker, someone who'd fabricated evidence for attention. But then they played the recordings. The actual audio she'd captured undercover. Women screaming, children crying, men negotiating prices for human beings like they were livestock. The jury looked sick. The defense looked desperate. Kai testified next. He sat in that same box and confessed to crimes that could have put him away for life, but he did it with such cold precision, such detailed knowledge of the syndicate's operations, that it was impossible to deny his credibility. "Why should we believe you?" the defense attorney asked. "You're a self-confessed murderer. You have every reason to lie to save yourself." Kai looked at the jury. "I'm not here to save myself. I'm already damned. I'm here because two people," he glanced at Andrea in the gallery, "taught me that damnation doesn't have to be permanent, that you can choose, even at the end, to do one good thing." The trial lasted 8 weeks. At the end, 231 defendants were convicted. 16 were acquitted on technicalities. The judge called it the most comprehensive dismantling of organized crime in modern history, but it wasn't over. The night after the verdict, Andrea woke to Kai's hands on her shoulders, his voice urgent in her ear. "They found us. Get dressed, now." She didn't question, didn't hesitate. They'd drilled for this. Go bags were already packed. Exit routes memorized. They were out the window before the tactical team breached the front door. Running through woods in darkness, guided by moonlight and desperation. Behind them, flashlights, dogs, the sound of pursuit. "This way," Kai hissed, pulling her toward a ravine. They slid down wet leaves and mud, hit a creek at the bottom, kept moving, using the water to mask their scent. Eventually emerged onto a service road where a car waited Agent Reeves's insurance policy, keys under the mat. They drove until dawn, then ditched the car and stole another. Kept moving, kept changing, stayed ahead of the people hunting them by pure velocity and paranoia. "We can't run forever," Andrea said somewhere in Tennessee. "I know." Kai's hands were tight on the wheel. "But we can run long enough for the appeals to fail, for the organization to collapse completely. 6 months, maybe a year, and then? Then we disappear for real. New names, new lives, somewhere so far off the grid they'll never find us." Andrea thought about that. About being no one again. About losing her name, her history, everything that made her real. "Or," she said slowly, "we stop running." Kai glanced at her. "What?" "You said the bomb was in the 9th precinct, that it was their failsafe, their insurance policy. What if there are others? There aren't. That was the only one. How do you know?" Andrea turned to face him. "You were mid-level enforcement, not top of the chain. What if there are other fail-safes you don't know about? Other insurance policies waiting to trigger?" Kai's expression darkened. "If there are, we have no way to find them. We have the files, all of them. Thousands of documents we released. What if the answer is in there, hidden in code or references we didn't understand? That would take months to analyze." "So we take months." Andrea grabbed his hand. "We stop running away and start running toward. We find every last insurance policy, every hidden bomb, every trigger that could still hurt innocent people. We don't just break the syndicate, we dismantle it so completely that nothing ever grows back." Kai was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled that sharp, dangerous smile she'd fallen in love with in a different lifetime. "You want to go to war. I want to finish what we started. That's insane. That's survival." She squeezed his hand. "We survive by making sure nothing and no one can hunt us ever again. We don't hide. We hunt them." Kai pulled the car over to the side of the highway, turned to her, cupped her face in his hands. "You're absolutely insane. I know. It'll be dangerous. We could die. Probably will die. I know. We'd be starting a war against ghosts. Against people who've already been convicted but still have resources, connections, reach. I know." She kissed him. "But we'd be doing it together. And together we're unstoppable." Kai searched her face for doubt and found none. Together. They didn't disappear. They dug in. Using the released files as a roadmap, they started tracking down every loose end, every hidden asset, every contingency plan the syndicate had built. They found offshore accounts and drained them, donated the money to trafficking victim support networks. They found hidden weapons caches and reported them to federal authorities. They found 3 more bombs smaller than the dirty bomb, but still deadly, and disarmed them all. It took 18 months. 18 months of living in the shadows, of moving from city to city, of sleeping with one eye open and weapons within reach. But slowly, inexorably, they won. The last loose end was in New Orleans. A syndicate lieutenant who'd avoided conviction on a technicality, who was rebuilding operations, gathering survivors, trying to resurrect the organization. They found him in a warehouse by the docks. The confrontation was brief, violent, ended with Kai standing over the man who'd ordered Andrea's death 3 years ago, gun to his head. "Do it," Andrea said quietly. "End this." Kai's finger tightened on the trigger, then stopped. "No," he said. He pulled out his phone instead, dialed 911. "I'm calling in an arrest. This man is wanted for racketeering and murder. My testimony will ensure he goes to prison for life." He looked at Andrea. "We're not killers anymore. We're survivors. There's a difference." 2 years after the trials ended, Andrea and Kai sat on a beach in California. Real names, real lives, real freedom. The Onyx Syndicate was gone, dismantled so completely that even the name had been erased from criminal networks. Every bomb disarmed, every account drained, every threat neutralized. They were free. "What do we do now?" Andrea asked, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold. Kai's hand found hers. "Whatever we want. We have the rest of our lives to figure it out." "That's terrifying." "That's living." He pulled her close. "We survived hell. Time to see what heaven looks like." Andrea rested her head on his shoulder and smiled. They'd started as a waitress and a killer, ended as partners, lovers, survivors, and the best part? They'd written their own ending. The nightclub opened on a Thursday night in Manhattan, the kind of soft launch that didn't advertise but still drew a line around the block. The signage above the door remained dark, leaving just a matte black entrance and a woman in a sharp suit checking names on a tablet. Inside, the space was a study in controlled elegance, all dark wood and brass fixtures, intimate booths, and a bar that glowed like honey in low light. The music was jazz with teeth, the kind that made you want to drink expensive whiskey and confess your sins. Andrea stood behind the bar, but this time she wasn't serving. This time she owned the place. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek bun. Her dress was charcoal silk, and around her neck hung a platinum pocket watch on a delicate chain repaired, polished, transformed from instrument of death into declaration of survival. She caught her reflection in the mirror behind the bar and almost didn't recognize herself. This woman looked powerful, dangerous, like someone who'd survived things that should have killed her and decided to build an empire on the ashes. "You're staring," Kai said, materializing beside her with the silent grace that still made her pulse jump even after 2 years. "I'm admiring." She turned to him, let her gaze travel over the black suit that fit him like a weapon, the way his hair was styled back but still looked like he'd just rolled out of bed, the small smile playing at his lips. "You clean up nice. So do you." His hand found her waist, possessive and public. "Ready for this? Ready to run a legitimate business? To pay taxes and file paperwork and be boring, law-abiding citizens?" She laughed. "It's terrifying." "Good." He kissed her temple. "Fear keeps you sharp." The doors opened. The city poured in young professionals and old money, artists and entrepreneurs, people looking for a place where the drinks were perfect and the staff never asked questions you didn't want to answer. Andrea watched them flow through her space, her kingdom, this empire she'd built from blood and survival. It wasn't the Velvet Room. It wasn't a front for anything illegal. It was hers. Really, truly hers. "Miss Solace?" One of the new bartenders approached, nervous but professional. "The reservation for the VIP section, they're asking if you'll join them for a drink?" Andrea glanced at Kai. He nodded. They moved through the crowd together, and people parted instinctively. Not from fear they didn't know about the alley or the trials or any of it. They parted because some people just carried power, and everyone could feel it. The VIP section held a surprise. Agent Reeves, now retired, sitting with a glass of scotch and a satisfied smile. "Victoria," Andrea said warmly, sliding into the booth. "This is unexpected. I don't do surprises anymore. Bad for the heart." Reeves raised her glass. "But I do celebrate victories. 16 states, 4 countries, 231 convictions, 0 successful appeals. The Onyx Syndicate is dead and buried. Thanks to you. Thanks to you." Reeves's gaze was sharp. You and your partner here did something I've never seen in 30 years with the Bureau. You didn't just take down a criminal organization. You burned it so completely that nothing grew back. No successors, no splinter groups, nothing. Just silence. Kai's hand found Andrea's under the table, squeezed. We were motivated. You were relentless. Reeves took a sip. The Bureau wanted me to ask if you'd consider consulting. We have other cases, other organizations that need the kind of surgical dismantling you two specialized in. Andrea and Kai exchanged a look, a whole conversation in a glance. No, Andrea said gently. We're retired. This, she gestured to the club around them, is our new life. Boring and legal and exactly what we need. Reeves nodded like she'd expected the answer. Can't blame a girl for trying. She stood, left a business card on the table. But if you ever change your minds, or if any ghosts from the past come knocking, you call me. We will. After Reeves left, they sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The club hummed around them. Music and laughter and the clink of glasses. The sound of life happening in real time. Do you think it's really over? Andrea asked quietly. Kai considered. I think we dismantled the organization. But organizations are made of people, and people have long memories. Will someone, someday, try to rebuild? Maybe. Will someone come for revenge? Possibly. He turned to her. But we'll face it together. Like we face everything else. Together, she echoed. The word had become their promise, their prayer, the foundation they'd built when everything else crumbled. A commotion at the door drew their attention. Security was turning someone away, a man in an expensive suit who clearly thought money bought entry anywhere. Should I handle it? Kai asked, already half standing. No. Andrea put a hand on his arm. Let security do their job. We hired good people. Let them prove it. They watched as their head of security, a former Marine named Torres, who took exactly zero shit from anyone politely but firmly escorted the man out. Professional, controlled, perfect. We did good, Kai said. We did good, Andrea agreed. The rest of the night passed in a blur of introductions and champagne, of congratulations and carefully veiled curiosity. Everyone wanted to know their story, how they met, how they'd built this place, what they'd done before. Andrea had her answer polished and perfect. We were in security consulting, decided we wanted something more, tangible, something we could build instead of tear down. Not a lie, just not the whole truth. At 2 a.m., they locked the doors behind the last customer. The staff cleaned up efficiently, and within 30 minutes, the club was empty except for the two of them. Andrea kicked off her heels, groaned with relief. Kai loosened his tie, poured them both a drink from the top-shelf bourbon they kept for themselves. They sat at the bar, not behind it, not in front of it, but perched on the stools like any other couple having a nightcap. First night was a success, Kai said, raising his glass. First night was perfect. Andrea clinked her glass against his. Here's to many more. They drank. The bourbon was smooth, warm, exactly right. Do you miss it? Kai asked after a moment. The adrenaline, the danger, the sense that we were fighting for something bigger than ourselves. Andrea thought about the question seriously. Did she miss the fear? The constant vigilance? The weight of knowing that one mistake could get them both killed? No, she said finally. I don't miss the danger, but I do miss the purpose. The feeling that we were making a difference, changing lives, saving people who couldn't save themselves. So let's do that here. Kai gestured to the club around them. This place, we make it more than just a nightclub. We make it a sanctuary. A place where people can come and feel safe, feel seen, feel like they matter. We hire people who need second chances. We support causes that protect the vulnerable. We build something that matters. Andrea looked at him, this man who'd been an enforcer and a killer, who'd tried to save her before they even met, who'd chosen redemption over survival time and time again. You're suggesting we become philanthropists. I'm suggesting we use what we built to build something bigger. His hand found hers again, that constant point of contact that anchored them both. We survived hell. Let's make sure other people don't have to. It was perfect. Of course it was. Because Kai saw her completely, saw the warrior who wanted peace but couldn't stop fighting, the survivor who needed purpose or she'd drown in normalcy. Okay, she said. But we do it smart. Quietly. No press, no attention. We just help. One person at a time. One person at a time, Kai agreed. They finished their drinks in comfortable silence. Eventually, Kai stood, held out his hand. Come on, let's go home. Home. The word still felt foreign, fragile. They'd moved 17 times in 2 years, never staying anywhere long enough to call it home. But now they had an apartment in Brooklyn, a lease in their real names, furniture they'd picked out together. Home. Andrea took his hand, let him pull her up. They locked up the club with the kind of care you give to something precious, something worth protecting. Outside, the city was quiet in that 3 a.m. way, not sleeping, just pausing, gathering strength for another day. They walked the empty streets hand in hand, and Andrea felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of danger, danger would always find them eventually, but the presence of something stronger. Choice. Purpose. The knowledge that they'd faced the worst the world could throw at them and come out the other side not just alive, but together. At a crosswalk, waiting for the light to change even though no cars were coming, Kai pulled her close. I love you. He didn't say it often, didn't need to. But when he did, it felt like a gift, like a weapon, like a promise carved in stone. I love you too. She kissed him there on the empty street corner, tasting bourbon and belonging. My killer, my savior, my partner in everything. Are we good people? Kai asked, echoing the question she'd asked 2 years ago in a burning warehouse. Andrea smiled against his mouth. No, we're survivors, and we own this city. But this time, when she said it, she didn't mean it as conquerors. She meant it as protectors, as builders, as two people who'd been through hell and decided that heaven was something you made with your own hands. One day at a time, the light changed. They crossed the street together, moving toward home, toward morning, toward whatever came next. Behind them, the nightclub's sign finally flickered to life letters in brass and neon that spelled out a promise. The Velvet Second. A second chance. A second life. A second shot at becoming something more than the sum of their scars. And as they disappeared into the Brooklyn night, 2 shadows became one, and the city kept turning, and somewhere in the darkness, other people who needed saving were about to find that salvation came in unexpected forms. Sometimes it looked like a waitress with a bottle in her hand. Sometimes it looked like a killer who chose mercy. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, it looked like both of them together building something beautiful on the ashes of everything that tried to destroy them. The end, but also the beginning.